Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Real Talk with Nikki. And today, Naiwave Studios decided we are going to do a home episode. Niliwambia they come wherever you are. So if you want, kama unasikia uko na uzembe kutoka kwa nyumba and you want to do a podcast, just call the number on the screen. Follow them on all their social media platforms. Wanakuanga na very affordable, pocket-friendly offers for people who want to do in-house studios. If you want to come to the studio, our studio is along Gong Road. Also call the number on the screen. Utapata hizo services zote. And today on our podcast, my name is Nicole Nyokabi, before I forget. And today on our show, we have a very interesting woman. She's a mom. And I want her to nataka introduce, atuambie a little bit about herself before we get into today's topic. Sasa.
Okay. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
My name is Teresa Ndongo. Arianna is my daughter. So, I am Mama Arianna.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Arianna is 1 year, 4 months old.
Okay.
And we are here today to celebrate what God has done. Because it's been a long journey from where it began to where we are country, having traveled overseas for treatment and coming back healthy. Yeah, it's for sure a testimony.
How long were you out of the country for?
We were there for 6 months.
6 months.
Because we left here on 17th of May, 2024. And we arrived back on 16th of November.
So you've been in the country for only a few weeks. How are you adjusting
about
to
a week.
How are you adjusting to the weather in the country?
The weather is quite friendly compared to what you expect. We went there when it was extremely hot, but towards the end, we were getting into winter. So the weather currently is quite friendly.
It's quite friendly.
It's just taking a little bit of time to settle down and ensure Arianna adapts to the current climate.
Okay, so before we continue, you have a pay bill for Arianna.
Yes.
So you can tell our followers the pay bill.
So the pay bill number is 522533 and the account number is 7834867. It should show Baby Arianna Medical Fund.
Okay.
Yes.
So please let's support her. She's a mom and I'm also a mom and I know it has not been an easy journey. So how has your emotional and physical change in another country? How was that? You were in a foreign country for 6 months.
Okay, a lot changed about me. But the main focus was on the baby. So understanding what she was going through, being there as the caregiver, and also being there on the front line to raise funds. So by God's grace, I managed to handle all that. But it's something I would not say it's easy. It's quite tough. So it made me become more tough. Because every day, seeing Arianna fighting, seeing her getting better motivated me to do whatever I had to do. And put into consideration, she's a baby. She's a little baby. She can't speak for herself.
True.
So then it means as a mom, I have to step up and speak for her, speak on her behalf, and actually rally for her. Yeah.
So were you in India alone or did you have any family who was there to support you?
I was with my sister for the entire period. The father was there for the first 1 month, but when we realized that we were to stay for about 6 months, then there was no point of us being there, so he had to come back to take care of the finances here and there. But for the entire period, I was with my sister because alone I could not have managed. She's a little baby. She requires attention 100%, and there are other things that needed to be taken care of.
Okay.
Yeah.
You really do have a supportive family. I know, like, your sister sacrificed a lot to go there with you.
Yes.
So I'm happy you have that. It's really good to have a support system when you're going through something like that.
Yeah.
So there was this, when you went there, you had an insurance when you were going to get treatment for your kid.
Unfortunately, the cover we were using before then could not cover for that treatment.
Okay.
Because the policies they have sometimes when you are dealing with congenital cases, most of the conditions you are getting is that the waiting period is about 1 year, 2 years. So it was not applicable that time. So her treatment was purely sponsored by the family, the friends, and well-wishers. because even NHIF then was not helpful.
Before you traveled, did you have a conversation with them? I'm traveling.
Yes, they gave what they usually give is a guarantee of payment, meaning you get the treatment on credit, then they pay the hospital later. But now our guarantee of payment was not accepted by the hospital because of the huge outstanding debts that were yet to be settled.
Okay.
So I think they had agreed as a hospital not to accept GOPs until maybe their debts were settled. So for me, it wasn't helpful. But they gave an option. They were like, if you can pay cash, go claim a reimbursement from NHIF, well and good. Or if NHIF can deposit money to the hospital account directly, specifically for that treatment, they would consider. But again, they didn't do that. We tried to negotiate. I think I'm sure you might have come across the articles on media and all that, but they didn't help.
They didn't help.
Unless maybe they're going to help now.
I'm sorry about
they
that.
didn't, yes.
So you paid everything out of pocket?
It was out of pocket in cash.
That must have really been hard on your finances.
Yeah, really, very hard. But as I said earlier, as a parent, you have to do what you need to do to see your baby is okay, because even the diagnosis itself is something very rare. But the girl kept fighting. Yeah, she kept fighting, and that kind of motivated me. And then I have faith in God, because when the journey began, personally, I didn't know I would be dealing with Pearson syndrome. And I remember when the year began, that time we had not even done the bone marrow biopsy. So we were dealing with the case as we were just dealing with anemia, whereby she had to get multiple transfusions and all that. And when the results of the biopsy came, the bone marrow biopsy came, and they said the bone marrow is not producing all the 3 main cells, and we need a bone marrow transplant. At the back of my mind, that was quite huge for us, and at the back of my mind, I knew once the transplant is done, it's over.
It's over.
Until we went there, in India, they don't just treat me. They don't begin the treatment without doing proper diagnosis. So we spent the first 1 month on diagnosis. They had done some genetic tests. And when the results came, the news were quite huge, because they said we are not only dealing with... They had to find out what the cause is, the cause of the bone marrow failure. And that is when they said she suffers from a rare condition, that is the Pearson syndrome. So Pearson syndrome can affect many organs in the body. So it can cause the organs to fail. And they were like, God has been gracious that she has survived so far. Because most of the cases, maybe they don't get diagnosis done early enough, and others end up losing their lives even before you discover what is happening. But for us, we were kind of lucky that they were able to identify that. And when they did a thorough checkup to confirm that every other organ in the body is working, so for her, it's just the bone marrow that was affected.
Okay.
And this condition began when she was only 3 months old. So they were like, we are going to do the bone marrow transplant, but they explained clearly that it may not be the cure for that syndrome, because they can only respond to the symptoms as they come. So you can imagine being told that the bone marrow failure is actually a symptom. Okay?
They don't even know.
It's not the cause, it's just a symptom. So that was huge. But I had faith in God that Arianna will live. And this girl kept fighting. So my main task was just to rally for finances, because the doctor understood the case. Though it's the first case they handled actually in India, this was the first bone marrow transplant for Pearson syndrome. They were not sure whether the body would tolerate the treatment, because they had to use chemotherapy to suppress the immunity before they infuse the donated stem cells. So again, they were not sure whether she would handle that. But by God's grace, she did. Yeah, maybe I'll share some photos when there were so many changes in her body, the hair falling off, the skin turning dark, losing weight. All those things happened.
As a mother, that seems so sad, seeing your kid go through all that, and there's nothing that you can do to help them.
Yeah, it's quite, that's why I said it's a tough journey, but God's grace has been sufficient because the doctor walked with me through the journey. They could explain that, expect to see this and that. And every time I complained about or I shared feedback about her reaction or maybe either of the side effects, they were like, these are mild side effects. We have seen worse. So they were quite excited about how she could tolerate the whole issue because I met other children there that were quite older than her. During that time, Arianna was actually the youngest. But she may not be able to express herself, to tell her maybe this is what I'm going through, but you can observe, you can see the discomfort. She could cry sometimes, and the doctors were always there to observe any symptom as it came. And I'm glad they were able to handle all that, and that the outcome was quite good.
Okay. So what were some of the cultural shocks or things that you learned when you were in India? Because I'm sure umetoka Kenya, you've gone to a different country, you've been there for 6 months.
Yes.
There must have some things umeona uko like, where? How comes this doesn't happen in our country?
I think everything is quite different. Starting from the food.
Okay.
They love spicy food.
So I've heard.
Every meal you take has chili in it. So, but you were coached before you went there. My uncle happened to have traveled there before for business purposes, and he had kind of told us whenever you want to order something, just specify that you want it non-spicy. You see, for us, when we say spicy food, we think it's just the normal spices, but for them, their spices have chili.
All their spices have chili?
Yes, be it ni paprika, the garam masala, all of them have chili in it. So if you don't want chili at all, just say you don't want spicy food. But what we did, where we were staying, we looked for a hotel where they could allow us to cook our own food. Because one, being a bone marrow transplant patient, she was not supposed to eat anything from outside. You have to prepare it and it has to be fresh. So where we were staying, we had our own, in our room we had a kitchen. They had provided everything. So the only thing we used to do is to buy food and do our meals. Then the other thing is the language barrier. Majority of them do not understand English. So I remember the first days we had an interpreter at the hospital, because though the doctors understand and some of the medical team, but some of them clearly do not understand English. So for you to get the fine details, you must have an interpreter. So he was there throughout the process. Then Indians love their culture. You see here we have adopted a lot from the Western culture and all that. In India, they don't easily compromise, including their attire, everything. And I remember during Diwali, because we were there, every day was a celebration for like a whole week. It's a whole thing compared to, okay, we also celebrate Christmas here. But majority of the Kenyans here do not even understand what Christmas means. It's just a season, and because it's a long holiday, they will go on holiday, they will celebrate with everybody else, but they don't understand the actual meaning. But on the other hand, Diwali means Diwali for them. Their rituals and all that, they'll do them irrespective of where they are. Yes.
Okay. So the next one is, your kid was diagnosed in the country, in Kenya? Arianna was diagnosed in Kenya?
Yes, the problem was discovered here.
Yeah.
But they had not known it's Pearson syndrome.
Okay. So that means you've worked with Kenyan or the Kenyan system, medical system, and then you've gone to the Indian medical system.
Yes.
Would you mind telling us some of the differences or some of the approaches that maybe one, either the Kenyan or the Indian, can adopt from the other?
I think my case, I was extremely lucky. Even for the few doctors I worked with, I was extremely lucky because my case did not take that long. She started having issues in October. And actually in October, we were just having feeding issues whereby she could consume like 180 to 210 mLs of milk at a go. So that had reduced to 10 ml, 20 ml. So it was quite a struggle. So, when we spoke to the pediatrician, we tried to change the milk brand because we were still using formula. And it didn't work. until the first day when he said we need to do a blood test, a CBC, just to be sure. But he warned me. He said, if the HB comes anything below 7, you're going to admit. And shock on me, it was 2.3, so that was an emergency case.
Yeah.
So that is when we had the first transfusion and the first admission on 16th of November 2023. So from then the second transfusion happened in January, and that is why, because immediately after we got connected to, we were referred to a pediatric hematologist. She's based at Nairobi Hospital, Doctors Plaza. So we walked the journey with her. So we could go for weekly checkups, sometimes after 2 weeks. And the transfusion that was done in November sustained her until January. That day we had just gone for normal checkup, only to do a CBC, and the HB was again around 5.4. So anything below 7, the rules were clear. You have to admit and you have to transfuse. So that is when the doctor was like, because she was still on medication, seems like it's not working. We need to carry out some tests to just make sure the kidney is functioning as expected, the liver, the thyroid. And when the tests were done, they were okay. So automatically she knew there's something wrong with the bone marrow. And that is when she proposed we do a bone marrow biopsy to just confirm or rule out. So in January, towards the end of January, that is when we discovered the bone marrow is not working. Okay. And the solution was we have to go to India for a bone marrow transplant.
So that was the first solution?
Yes, that was the solution from the word go. But now, when the immunity is low, when the bone marrow is not working, then it means the white blood cells are low, the neutrophils are low, the red blood cells and the platelets. In our case, the platelets were not very low, but the red blood cells, that's why the HB kept on dropping, they were low, and the white blood cells. So her immunity was completely low. She started getting infections. And I remember that time we had exhausted the funds we had. I had exhausted the cover I had, so we were paying everything on cash. So I requested for a referral to KNH. We went to KNH for 2 weeks, and because admission at Nairobi Hospital without insurance would have been extremely expensive for that period. So we stayed there for 2 weeks, and they treated the viral infection. Then when we came back home, about 2-3 days later, she just had consistent fever that was not responding to medication. So again, that is when I decided to look for a second opinion. I consulted my pediatrician again, and we tried a different doctor. So that time, the doctor came in to help us with the infections, because again, she was again diagnosed with malaria. I don't know where malaria came from, but I think it's due to the exposure in the hospital and all that, so many transfusions. Anything could happen. So again, we had to be admitted at KU referral for another whole week. So it was back to back. Then after that, the strike came. She reached a point where we used to do transfusions after every 2 weeks, because she was growing, the body was demanding more, and the bone marrow was not producing whatever was required. So we started now booking transfusions at Gertrude's, different places, now wherever like we could in private hospitals. And even the doctor that we approached, who is seeing her currently, she was quite clear. Whatever we are dealing with currently is to prevent the infections. But we are not dealing with the root cause. Because they said the bone marrow failure could be caused by 2 things. One, it's either it's something she's born with, it's a genetic, or it could be as a result of a viral infection an infection in the bone marrow. So in the event it's an infection, it's out of an infection, then they expected with treatment that the marrow would pick up with time. So she actually gave us like 2 weeks to just monitor the trend. And by the end of the 2 weeks, she was like, no, it's not working. So I think most probably there is a high probability this thing is genetic. And given the cost involved, in Kenya, I don't think we don't do the genetic test here. We'll only take the sample and send them either to South Africa or maybe to India. And again, the hospitals in India are quite specific. Even if you go with all the papers and all the reports, they are only going to consider them as point of reference. They have to do their own diagnosis. And given that you are already struggling financially, there was no point of doing the genetic test here. Then it was quite clear we just organize ourselves. We travel to India. They do everything from there because they just had to repeat. So I feel if the doctors were quite clear on what needs to be done, because they may have ordered for the genetic test to be done, but because of the cost effect, that is when they advised to just go to India. But now technology, you see, like now for such a test to be done, it has to be outsourced. In India, they just do it there. So in terms of technology and again experience, there's a whole difference. And here we only see maybe one doctor, and you find one doctor is going to different hospitals. So you might find there is over-reliance on one individual, yet the cases are quite demanding. But in India is a whole team. And if that team is destined for a specific hospital, they are not allowed to work in a different hospital. Yes, they are based there, their work is dedicated there, and it's a whole team. I think I was working with a team of like 7 people. All destined, all maybe specializing on bone marrow transplant. It's a whole department. Yeah, so the technology is on another level. That's why remember our transplant was not a full match transplant. It was a half identical. It's a half match. It's called haploidentical half match because I was the donor and the HLA matching was 90%. So you can only achieve 100% maybe when the donor is a sibling, because the sibling, the child is able to maybe take 50% from both parents. But for my case, because Arianna is the only child, then they had to do HLA matching for both parents, and I had the higher matching of 90%. So the half match is quite, the side effects of half match is not the same as a full match. The full match is quite easier to handle. Even, so you can imagine getting a foreign organ in the body. When the body recognizes you have received something foreign, it starts fighting the organ. So in this case, it requires a lot of experience. Technology has to be on higher notch. The kind of treatment they use and all that.
So how was it for you being the donor to your kid? How was the experience for you? Because you had to be admitted for that.
Remember, I was the caregiver. So I walked the journey with the child all through. When we went to India, the entire 6 months we were not like hospitalized. We were only admitted on specific instances. Like now, they have a system where you can be admitted in the daycare. The daycare is the same as the inpatient, but just for the day. It's opened in the morning at maybe early morning, and they close in the evening. So for procedures like the bone marrow biopsy, because they had to repeat, we didn't go for the normal admission. We were admitted in the daycare. They got the sample, they monitored the baby, and in the evening we were discharged. So apart from that instance, then the main procedure, we were admitted for 3 weeks in the hospital. That one you go to the BMT ward. Then the other 2 scenarios is where she had there's a time she had an influenza. She got influenza, an infection. Then the other time, there's a time she was diagnosed with GVHD. So only on those instances that we were in the hospital. The rest of the time we were just outpatient. We used to work through the outpatient department. So that means we were in the hotel, and of course under clear instructions on what to observe, the hygiene standards, what to cook for her and all that. So me walking the journey with her from day one, I kind of understood the process. So I was prepared. I was always prepared on to take the next move. And I remember during that time, before I could donate the stem cells, I was receiving some injections 5 days prior. I think it's to split the marrow, just to spread the stem cells in the blood or something of the sort. I don't quite understand, but that is the main purpose. So the injections also had some side effects, and they were quite huge. So what we used to do, The ward had an extra bed for the caregiver. So my sister used to come in the morning. We could spend the day together. She takes care of the baby. At night she goes back. Because one of the things she used to consume is porridge. So that porridge had to be prepared at the hotel. So that she comes with fresh porridge every morning. Yes, that time she was not feeding anything. For the 3 weeks, my baby was relying on porridge, which she could take sometimes and sometimes she couldn't. Milk was an issue because of the medication. Remember, they also used chemotherapy. So it was quite heavy on her. So we were relying on the fluids. She was on fluids 24/7. So that is, my sister was quite helpful during that period, let me say so.
I'm so grateful
She
that you
stood
have
in the
someone
gap.
like
Yes,
that.
yes. And she also understands. Even when I'm away for whatever reason, she knows what medication she needs to take, what time, the quantity. And you know, sometimes we're human beings, you can forget something. She will be like on my toes. We need to do this, we need to do that. Yeah.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on the transition from NHIF to SHA? And how do you think it's going to affect the people who are seeking treatment out of the country?
You see, apart from the debts not being paid, no, apart from the outstanding debts, the other reason that the hospital was not quite comfortable accepting the GOP was that they had had a hearsay that the transition was to come, and they had not received official communication on how to handle that. So they were afraid. They were not sure whether the outstanding, whether SHA would handle the outstanding debts that were incurred during the time of NHIF. They were not sure whether they would take liability.
So that's why
they became reluctant on handling accepting the GOP. But from my own experience, if I could not get help, having contributed to NHIF for like 10 years, and at the point of my need, they didn't come through for me, I don't think I have trust in the new system. Because what is the point of contributing anyway? There's no point of paying for insurance that will not be of help to you. You understand? So, and then we could watch on news how so many patients were suffering. They just, like the patients that are under chemotherapy or maybe dialysis, it's quite huge when they go to the hospital for the routine care or the routine dose, whatever the case, and they are told the system is not working. And I believe anybody contributing to NHIF or SHIF or SHA, then it means they are relying on that system. So for them to be denied that procedure, it has so many effects on them. Yeah. And until you're there, that is the only time you can understand how crucial it is. So personally, I don't see the point. I don't know. I don't know what to comment on that, but if they could not come through that time, I remember there is a point it reached where we didn't have money for the routine tests. And that time the baby, in India, and I was in communication with these people. All I got was promises. Those promises were there from beginning of October. Now we are back in Kenya. I still have my routine care to take care of. I will be going back to India again for checkup, and those guys are just silent. So, personally, I don't trust the system.
That's a really sad sentiment coming from somebody who you pay insurance, and when you want them to come through for you, they don't come through for you, and they're still charging you for the same insurance.
And mind you, they had issued a guarantee of payment. So Arianna was entitled to 450,000 Kenyan shillings. Okay. It's there in writing. But just to flex their system, not even the system, it's a decision issue. Just to agree, this is our way of doing things. We usually issue a guarantee of payment. They told me they don't have a refund policy to individual people. Then it was so clear and easy to just deposit the money to the hospital account. Then the hospital would have consumed whatever they would have consumed during that period, and whatever maybe remained, I would have claimed a refund. It was quite clear on what needs to be done. But somebody somewhere did not make the decision. Maybe, I don't know, for whatever reason. Yeah.
So you have nowhere where that money that was supposed to take care of Arianna's treatment went?
I don't know who is benefiting from that, but she's entitled. It's not a favor we were requesting.
It's something
she's
that's
entitled
due
to it. Yes.
And that's really sad. I think most of these policymakers don't view that insurance as someone's life that they are actually carrying in their hands. Because I know at that point, as a mom, I would feel like someone is actually carrying my son's life in their hand, and they're like toying with it.
The other question is, I was in a foreign country where the doctors tried their best even to negotiate the cost for us. And this is my home country.
True.
This money I've contributed over the years. So between my government, whatever the case, and the foreigners, who is supposed to come through for me?
The government, your home government.
Who is supposed to resonate with the case more?
The home government.
So if they can't,
how is the foreign supposed to help you? That's something question those people should actually ask themselves.
That's the question.
That's a food for thought.
And these are baby. It's not even for myself. It's for a child who is fighting for her life.
True.
Yes. But the doctors were kind enough. I remember this day was supposed to deposit some 34,000 Indian rupees. And mind you, the Indian rupee is stronger than the Kenyan shilling.
So 34,000 Indian rupee, rate ya rupee na Kenyan ni how much?
You multiply by around 1.65.
Okay.
So ni over 50k, that is. And I didn't have that money, and they knew they needed to do an endoscopy to confirm, because the baby again had feeding issues, and they knew after transplant, if the patient is not feeding, that is a clear indication. It's a sign of graft versus host disease. So, and the only way to diagnose it is through an endoscopy. So I remember that time we were looking for like 150k, because again there was the cost of the admission in the daycare and the cost of the endoscopy, because she has to be on sedation and all that. So I could not raise that money. And you know what the doctors did? I was admitted in the emergency ward. You know, emergency, you don't ask for a deposit. Then they took care of the baby. The following morning, she was taken for the endoscopy. Then Nation Media came through for us. They shared the story that night. Kenyans donated. Imagine the hustlers, 50, 100, 200, whatever they could get. And also the friends through the WhatsApp groups. And we were able to raise money to cater for that test, the whole procedure. So the following day before discharge, at least we're able to pay for whatever needed to be paid. But if the doctors insisted that we must be admitted in the daycare as per the plan, you could not afford that. And it was quite crucial, because for sure the results showed signs of GVHD. Again, if it's not treated in good time, if it's not detected early, then it can lead to a relapse. So it was quite huge, and that moment I felt a let down by SHA, NHIF,
whatever policies.
It was a letdown.
I'm grateful for those hustlers when you are legitolia, because now I've seen baby Arianna and she looks much better.
Yeah, she's okay, she's fine, she's doing better. So for now, we'll just continue with our routine checkups. We're supposed to do bi-monthly, at least twice a month. After every 2 weeks, there are a number of tests you're supposed to do. And actually, out of the 5 tests, 2 of them have to be outsourced. Wow. Meaning, I was consulting some of the labs here, Kina Lancet, Metropolis. They are quite expensive. Because they are coming to the total cost. From the quotations I've gotten, it's coming to around, the cheapest I've seen is around 37,000. You can imagine 37,000 for tests only after every 2 weeks.
So that means in a month you need around 74.
Around 70 something, then plus consultation. Because again, we have to be mindful of where we go to see the doctor.
You don't have a specific hospital you're currently going to?
We will have to go back to the doctor who referred us, so that they can work with the team in India. But again, there are two options of seeing her in the private clinic or of seeing her at the public hospital. But again, exposure to this kid at this moment is quite crucial because she's not supposed to interact with so many people. Her immunity is still very low until 1 year post-transplant. And again, it was done in June, on 26th of June. So come June next year, again, we're supposed to go to India so that they can do another thorough checkup. Remember I said as we began that Pearson syndrome can cause failure of any organ. Being the heart, being the pancreas, any. So that means this baby will be under routine check just to ensure that her body is functioning as it should. Again, chemotherapy can also be a bit toxic to the body, so it causes the failure of some organs. So I think also anybody who has gone through chemo and a transplant, they usually go back for routine checkups. So this is a journey that we just began. The main part is already done, and we are so grateful to everybody who came through for us, and we're also grateful to God because this is a miracle. You can imagine this was the 7th haploidentical bone marrow transplant for Pearson syndrome the entire world.
Wow.
And it was a success. To a point, the doctor had to do a press conference to tell people, those diagnosed with rare conditions, that there is hope, something can be done. Put into consideration, they were not sure about it, but the outcome was quite pleasing and it was quite encouraging. So this is a journey we have begun. The bigger part is done, but it's still, we have to work with her until now. We are certain that she's okay.
Okay.
But she's in stable condition. You saw her play. You saw her feed well. So we are grateful to anybody who played parts through prayers, through their contributions, and to the Almighty God for the miracle.
And also for the team of doctors who actually put in the work.
They are actually angels that were planted there for that particular job. I see them that way. This is a journey that we began. God was there as we began. He's still there. You say he's the Alpha and Omega. So he made sure everybody that was supposed to play a specific role was in position. So those were angels that were planted there. Okay. And I said earlier, I didn't suffer. Okay, I could hear some patients complain that, the Kenyan doctors were taking them around for years before they could discover they can go overseas for treatment. For me, that was not the case. I told you, by the time we did the second transfusion in January, and the doctor requested for a bone marrow biopsy, it was quite clear that we need to go for a bone marrow transplant. So they were not buying time here. And in as much as I was going to different people just to seek a second opinion, because I'm a human being, and those news were quite shocking to me.
It is also your kids.
Even the second doctor that I saw, and everybody else that I consulted, they were like, that is the route to go. And they supported through the process. Any document that was required, searching for the hospital and all that, they were there for me. So for me, I feel like God enabled all these people to do whatever they were supposed to do to make sure that Arianna is okay.
You talked something about transfusions. Your daughter was getting blood transfusions from the hospital.
We used to do blood transfusions and platelets transfusions when maybe the platelets went below 20,000 or 20. We had to transfuse. And I remember, due to her low immunity, the doctor didn't want her in the hospital environment. So we could make arrangements where we look for a donor. They go donate in the hospital like a day before. So when we go in specifically for the transfusion. Once it's done, of course, she has to be monitored because it's done through inpatient. She is monitored, and once the doctor ascertains that she is okay, we are discharged. So blood transfusion was not an issue because what the hospitals are quite flexible. They will accept any blood group, then they exchange. But platelets, for platelets you have to look for donors because it's not everybody who is qualified to donate platelets. You must be having a certain level and above. There are limits. So the hospital, you see, I would not say they provided, because every time you had to look for a donor. I think it is cheaper that way rather than when you buy it from the hospital.
You buy it from the hospital, true. Does she still need transfusion, or right now she just medication and the tests?
No, before the bone marrow transplant. We call it BMT. Before BMT, or before traveling to India, we had done 7 blood transfusions and 3 transfusions for platelets.
Okay.
And when you got to India, I think they did 1 transfusion before the main procedure because the cells kept on dropping.
True.
Yeah. But after the bone marrow transplant, there's a certain medication they used to give during that time. Of course, it would cause the platelets to drop. So immediately during that period before the discharge, they had transfused. But from the point that we were discharged, we have never done any transfusion. So that is a relief because that girl used to go through a lot of pain.
Yeah,
The pricking all the time. You can imagine
maybe
weekly checkup.
nachukia sindano. I can imagine a little kid like Arianna going through that.
And you know her veins, okay, anemia can cause the veins to collapse.
True.
So inatafutwa anadungwa kila mahali. So me ilikuwa imefika point I had to identify which lab to go to, who to target, because maybe this one is so good with kids, the other one struggles, because I was there every other week.
So ulikuwa unajua who is an expert with your kid and who is not.
Yes. Akilemewa namwambia eat so and so. He can handle. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm hoping when you're going for your next checkup, she'll be doing much better and she'll keep on improving.
Yeah.
So you're going back to India in an year's time?
Yeah, next year in June is a must. Actually, they had, from our discharge summary, it says we go after 3 months. But they told me after 3 months, it's just the normal routine checks. And the test they are going to do is just the 5 that they have listed there. So we negotiated and they were like, if you can be able to get those tests done here and everything goes on well, there's no need of going back to India after 3 months. But come June next year, it's mandatory because we'll be marking 1 year post transplant. Yes.
I'm hoping I'll be coming back after that 1 year to get a success story.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, so next is there was a change of leadership in SHA. Do you think the change in leadership is going to affect anything in patient care, patient handling?
You see, those are the internal issues. Even the transition, those are the internal procedures. What you want to see is a solution. As a patient, I can only talk as a patient.
Yeah, as a patient.
What I want to see is things running. The patient only knows making the payment, whatever they're supposed to pay, and whenever they go to any hospital, they're able to access the medical care that they deserve.
Yeah.
That's all we know. About leadership, who is in charge, about their policies, they are there to guide them, not us as the patient. So it's theirs to take care of. So I don't know because so far I've not received any communication. This journey began when it was a different leadership. So when the new leadership came in, what have they done so far?
They've done nothing.
You can only get that feedback from the patients who are seeking medical care, dialysis, chemotherapy, frequently from different hospitals. Those are the only people that can tell you whether the system is working or not. Not the team, the makers of the system. It's only the receiver or the patient who can give that feedback. Yeah.
So when you're in India, did you meet other Kenyans who are there who are going through the treatment and they went through the same thing you went through with the NHIF and the SHA?
There are so many Kenyans in India, and not just in that particular hospital, in different hospitals. And because we could talk, they were like, even here where I am, maybe sometimes back they used to accept the GOP, but now they are not accepting. They are insisting that you pay in cash because remember they are also in business. They have to continue with their work.
True.
And to make matters worse, we are foreigners. We have gone to their country. So actually at some point the doctor told me, remember, this is between you and your country. This is between you and NHIF. For us is for you. Our responsibility is to make sure the patient is well taken care of. And your responsibility is to ensure the funds are available. So that was my battle between myself and NHIF and SHA. Therefore, them, they don't care so much about what is happening here. But so many Kenyans are there seeking treatment, and they were going through the same thing I was going through. Some of them who had been there earlier, they were lucky their GOPs were accepted. But I think I was only unlucky to go when they had already decided no more GOPs.
No more GOPs. And there were other patients from other countries in the same hospitals?
Yes. I made friends from Nigeria. I made friends from India also and from other countries as well.
So from the other countries where the GOPs are accepted?
I don't know what applies in their country.
In their country,
yeah.
okay.
Some of them talked of insurance, so others were paying in cash. So I don't know what was happening in their countries. I think they have a totally different kind of arrangement.
So, you, as someone who has been staying with your kid who has Pearson's, is there something, kuna zile vitu zenye haziko kwa articles that when I was doing research on it, there's things that I know that I did not see that in the articles. So what is it that you get to create awareness on the disease and the condition? What is it that is not in the articles that you can tell someone? If you see this, go and get checked. If you see this, go and get checked.
What I would say and what I would emphasize on is on proper diagnosis. Because I've had cases there in India where somebody comes in a very critical condition, and when diagnosis is done, they are like, you are on treatment already, you are on treatment plan in Kenya, but it's kind of, it's either it was the wrong treatment or something of the sort. So for me, you see, Arianna's case, the first symptom was poor feeding. Something simple as that. That went on translated to bone marrow hypoplasia, then Pearson syndrome. So I think whenever your body is not functioning the way it should, it is important to go for that checkup. Now, ukisikia that they can't find whatever the case, always seek a second and a third opinion. Because proper diagnosis, in as much as we are saying there is no cure for Pearson syndrome, at least understanding what you're dealing with gave the doctors an idea of what to do about it.
And treatment plan.
Yes. And now we have a clear treatment plan. So my emphasis would, I think we shared almost everything, but the finer details, as long as, in as much as you're going to India to seek treatment, you must take care of the funding. Yeah, you must. It's not a cheap process because I remember we were looking for 6 million Kenyan shillings, and I'm sure and certain that we have used more than 6 million, almost 7 million.
So mkienda mlikuwa mmeambiwa budget itakuwa around 6 million.
Yes, I had the quotation. But the most expensive thing in India is the accommodation. Because you're living in a hotel, in an apartment, like a
B&B.
Yeah, a B&B. So the charges are done daily. So like for us, we used to pay 2,200 rupees per day. Of course, we had created a rapport with the hotel, so they never demanded for the daily payment because sometimes they didn't have that money. But we used to pay like after every 2 weeks, after 1 week. But there's a time I went a whole month without paying even a single coin because I didn't have that money. And you have to prioritize treatment. So my emphasis would be whenever your body, and again, the knowledge of our bodies, how they should function, so that whenever there's a problem, you can sense there's a problem. So I think there's a lot of awareness to be done. I came to discover some of these things are genetic. We have never had that in our family. Even in the dad's family, they have never had something of the same. So I think the awareness is required. And again, anytime anything goes wrong or something is even just a mere headache, it's good to get checked and know what needs to be done. Yeah.
So, what are some of the benefits or some of the things, the positive things that you learned in India that you want to bring back to the country and maybe do them or practice them?
One is the diet.
Their diet is nice.
But they eat healthy.
So, spicy food is healthy.
To some extent, because they are using natural spices, herbs, and all that. I also learned that the green chili, pili, the green one, is quite healthy. So they are very watchful on their diet, what they feed. I think huku tunakula tu, but them they are quite very particular. Then you see the things we use, the utensils we use sometimes. You've heard people complain about the non-stick sufurias, the non-stick pots peeling off. That's quite a danger. And also the chemicals used to make that. So you have to be keen on what you use. Because there they use a lot of stainless steel. And clay, and even the kind of plastic they use.
So umesema to remain kwa stainless, tusiende kwa non-stick?
No, I'm just you asked what I learned.
Yeah, but now that's something you're telling people, that just stick to the stainless steel, wachana non-stick.
You're very quick to pick any plastic and put in the microwave to warm our food.
True.
Be cautious of the kind of maybe toxic, what are they called? Those gases and stuff. The materials that are used that can get into your food and you consume without knowing. So that is why they emphasize on stainless steel mostly. And if you have to go to the plastic ones, make sure it's food grade, it's qualified, BPA free, and all that. There's a lot of information in the internet. People can check. Then something else I learned about Indians. I never thought they are Christians who are Indian.
They are Christians who are Indians?
Yes.
I thought they're just
Christianity is not that popular in India, but they are very serious about the business. Yes. Because I found a church. I used to go to Victory Churches of India, and I met a couple that they took us as their children, and they took care of us. They showed us where to fellowship. They were there for us, because remember, we were in foreign land. We didn't know anybody there. True. Though we made friends, but I felt that the family that was closer to us, and we could share quite a lot. We could pray together, we could fellowship together. Even the days when, because there's a period where we were in complete isolation, that time when we could not go even to church, they could come and pray for us. They could do video calls and we pray over the phone and all that. So they are Christians in India. They are very serious about it. Here we are quite spoiled. Okay? We are quite spoiled in that we got used to Christianity and we just look at it as a religion. So some people don't mean it, and that is why we see some pastors that are not genuine. They took it like a business. There are so many cases that have been going around. But at an individual level, I think it's a high time people chose to have a personal relationship with God. Even before you go to choose the church will be fellowshipping at, how is your relationship with God? Because if people can get it right there, then it means you'll be able to discern between the true men of God and the fake ones, because there in India people seek God seriously. Yeah, and I was happy to have watched the interview for Israel Mbonyi. We all enjoy his music. We feel in a way, because even my time during my admission at Kenyatta, I used to listen to his songs quite a lot, and they were quite encouraging. And I remember him saying that he got that he composed most of his songs while he was in India, because he went there to study pharmacy. And though he used to sing from a young age, but he had a personal connection with God when he went to India, because he met a team that was kind of like-minded. So they are quite serious about that.
Okay.
And I came back a better person. Instead of that issue maybe suppressing my faith, I now have more faith in God. And having gone through all that, I believe even the remaining part, God is in charge. He will send the right people on the way. He will make sure everything goes as expected. Okay. Yeah.
So as we wrap up this session, please remind people of the pay bill number, so that people can be able to help Arianna when she's going for ISO test. I know those tests are expensive. 74,000 a month is not easy to come by. So you can remind people of how they can help you and baby Arianna, so that baby Arianna can get better. Yeah.
The pay bill number is 522533, and the account number is 7834867, showing baby Arianna Medical Fund.
Okay. So as we come to the end of our video, is there something you want to tell our audience or anyone who's going to view this video that you want them to when and your home?
Okay. Mine is a request to everybody watching to kindly come support baby Arianna, because it is not over. This is a journey that we just began. And I feel as a mother, that is the best thing I can do. This is not something I can be able to handle alone. I require your support through your prayers, through your donations. I request for your financial support so that we can ensure she goes for her checkup as scheduled. And again, we are advised to be vigilant in case of anything. We have to deal with it as soon as possible. And again, come June next year, it is a must we go back to India for a thorough checkup, just to ensure that all her organs are working as expected, so that in case of anything, they are able to deal with it as early as possible. So we have a pay bill number. You can send your donation to pay bill that will be showed on the screen. So kindly support us. Thank you.
Okay, so please support baby Arianna, and we are on road to 1,000 subscribers. So please subscribe, leave a comment. Let's support baby Arianna so that she can get better, and we will be back to do a success story on baby Arianna. So thank you very much for hosting us today. I hope hatujaingia kwa space yako sana. So thank you very much for hosting us. I'm hoping to be back here again for a success story for baby Arianna.
Yes.
And please, let's support baby Arianna. And that's all we have for today. So bye guys, see you next time, and I love you.